Hey, Pretty Girl Club. So today I'm going to talk about how exoticals are the standard of living. We are often seen as the standard of femininity, and it's not like we put ourselves on this pedestal. We have been placed on this pedestal by a lot of unambiguous black women who have tried to live vicariously through us. So I'm going to be using Meghan Markle as an example because I've noticed that a lot of people, they're tuning into her Netflix show. I see a lot of unambiguous black women who view Meghan Markle's husband as a symbol of masculinity and, kind of like this protector and provider archetype. So, once again, look at who these women's symbols of success are. If you look at women with inferiority complexes, oftentimes the people who symbolize success, they are either a black person that benefits from an ism, they'll be a mixed race person, or it'll be a completely non-black person. So I've talked about how Russell Wilson is viewed as a standard of masculinity and, being a protector and provider. Okay, he's mixed race. I've also talked about the pedestal that they were giving to men like Aaron Pierre, and then the other actor that was recently cast in a movie with Halle Bailey. I can't remember that guy's name. But a lot of the men that they put on a pedestal, they're usually going to be men who are not unambiguous. And this is because they view their own community as dusty. And they talk about it on their YouTube channels. Go look at their YouTube channels and you'll hear them calling their own family members dusty. They'll say their fathers are dusty. They will talk about their toxic, unambiguous black mothers. And then whenever they talk about femininity, they bring up women like Meghan Markle as the standard or the example. So I'm telling you this because anytime they try to project onto you as an MLS woman, if they try to project and say, oh, well, you're not that feminine, you're not that pretty, that's a lie. Because whenever we are not looking, they're studying us. They're studying our lifestyles. We are the standard of social climbing because look at how much they're worshiping Meghan Markle. Okay, so she's a standard of social climbing for them. She represents the lifestyle that they wish they could have. Nara Smith is another one. A lot of unambiguous women secretly want to live the same lifestyle as a person like Nara Smith. And ever since the exotical space came into play, I've noticed that a lot of women who are unambiguous, they're talking about how, oh, well, we're just living our feminine soft life or, we're in our soft life era. We're not going to be doing any more protesting. We're not going to be out on the streets holding up signs. My question is, who told you to go out and protest? Who told you? Who told you to do that? Nobody forced you to go out and do that. Nobody forced you into being a social justice warrior. If anything, you could argue that it was black men, your counterparts, who were the ones who wanted you to go out and do that. So I've talked about how a lot of unambiguous women have a history of being extremely black male-centered. If you don't believe me, please go watch Cynthia G's content where she talks about black male worship. So I believe that black women going out on the front lines and protesting and all that, I also think that it was a side effect of black male worship because most of those protests that were happening 15 and 20 years ago were about black men. Trayvon Martin, Troy Davis. There are so many black men who got unalived by police officers. And a lot of the protests were about the men. There were way more protests about black men versus black women. So it's like, when it comes to you being a social justice warrior, nobody told you to do that. Nobody forced you to do that. And my next question is, what difference did that make? Because the last time I checked, injustices are still happening. The isms still exist. So I feel like a part of the whole social justice warrior thing was just another form of them seeking black male validation while also hoping to social climb. And I've talked about how a lot of them have a very bad social climbing strategy. They will either depend on men. So, they depended on black men. They were very male-centered around black men. This is more so early 2000s, 2010s. They were hoping that these black men would kind of build a community for them or whatever. They didn't do it. So then they were disappointed. And I just feel like culturally, a lot of women with inferiority complexes have gone through so many disappointments to the point where they have no self-trust. They don't trust their own community. They don't trust the good qualities within the unambiguous black community. So they have to look to us, who they view as different. They view us as the quote-unquote exotic black people. Now they're trying to backtrack on all their talking points and say that that's not how they view us. But we know historically that is how they view us. So they have a habit of constantly looking to others to be their standard. So remember how I talked about that external locus of control? Constantly looking outside yourself for signals and cues on how to be feminine, how to live the soft life. When they talk about the soft life, why are they always bringing up mixed race women? Like, why don't I see them using a whole bunch of examples of women with shrunken natural 4C hair in its natural state? Why are they constantly showing women who are maybe unambiguous, but they're either mimicking the phenotype of an MLS woman, or it'll be just a straight up non-black woman or someone that's like biracial or mixed or something? And if you look at their content where they talk about how they're no longer protesting, they'll say things like, oh, we're tired of fighting on everyone else's behalf and we're not getting anything in return. Okay, so you were trying to fight on other people's behalf as a manipulation tactic in hopes that you could build your pedestal off of those people. So once again, that's another bad social climbing tactic. That's an external locus of control. Constantly focusing on what are Latinas going through? What are white women going through? What are LGBT people going through? What are all of these other groups of people dealing with? How does it compare to me? And how can I try to align myself with them so that I can social climb? That's not the best way to live a soft life because you can't solve everybody else's problem. And I've noticed that a lot of women with inferiority complexes, part of why they get that is because they're carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders. Imagine waking up every day as an unambiguous black woman and you have to worry about fighting for the Hispanic community, fighting for the LGBT community, fighting for women's rights, fighting against colorism, texturism, featureism, racism, anti-blackness, misogynoir. So it's like you got all of these different political issues hanging on your shoulders. And I've talked about this several times. One of the biggest social climbing mistakes a lot of unambiguous women have made is intertwining their identity with politics. So for example, making their afros a symbol of the Black Power movement, kind of like, remember Malcolm X and those types of people? Making your hair and your beauty into a political statement, I don't recommend doing that because I don't see how that's going to, like your hair, that's just an expression of your beauty. You don't have to involve something like your hair texture into politics. You don't have to wear your hair a certain way in order to prove your Afrocentrism. So I feel like a lot of people in the Black community have been very easily brainwashed and easily influenced by others. And again, that's a part of that external locus of control. If you're not following your intuition, if you're constantly worried about other people's opinions, then it's very easy for other people to control your self-perception. So I feel like a lot of them have felt very behind when it comes to femininity. They've felt very behind when it comes to hair care, when it comes to hygiene. They've talked about this. They've talked about how their own mothers neglected them. Their mothers didn't teach them femininity or whatever. And you guys know my views on this. If you're born a woman, you're feminine. But I do believe that there is a such thing as feminine privilege. And that has to do more so with using the positive stereotypes of femininity to your advantage. And then I've also noticed that a lot of unambiguous women, they complain about not having corrective promotion. So they will say things like, we've been used as the face of social justice. We've been used as the face to fight against all of the isms. And it's like, okay, but you guys volunteered to be there because that's the only place where you guys feel visible. A lot of you guys don't feel visible in the beauty industry. You don't feel visible on social media. You don't feel visible on dating apps. You don't feel visible when it comes to the Black male gaze or the male gaze at all. And this is just me repeating their own talking points. So they made another bad social climbing decision. They volunteered to be the face of social justice because they were hoping that it would give them social status. I told you guys that the ism conversation, colorism, texturism, and featureism, usually when you see an unambiguous woman talking about it, it's never about social justice. It's always about social status. Because the examples she will name, she'll be like, oh, I didn't get asked out to prom. Okay, that's social status. Oh, I didn't get chosen on a dating app. That's social status. Oh, the music industry is colorist, texturist, and featurist. Social status. Fame, Hollywood, being picked by a man, all of that has to do with social status. Living the soft life, which is kind of having this affluent lifestyle or kind of having all this leisurely time. Okay, again, that's a form of social status. So they've had a tendency to use the isms as a way to try to attain social status, and it didn't work. All it did was make them the face of being social justice warriors, and then it kind of harmed their collective image. And so now they're trying to restore it by mimicking women like Meghan Markle as their standard of living and standard of femininity. And another talking point I heard is People are using the unambiguous woman's image because they see that Black women are burning the cape. Who is they? Whose attention were you guys trying to get by caping in the first place? Whose attention were you seeking by doing this whole social justice warrior thing in the first place? So that tells me you actually exposed yourself right there. You exposed that you guys put on the cape not because you genuinely cared about colorism, texturism, featureism, etc. No, it's because you wanted to be seen. You wanted to capture the attention of these white people in power or these Black men or, who is they? Who is the they that you're talking about? They see that Black women are burning the cape, so they're trying to get our attention. They? What do you mean? White media, white Hollywood? Why are you seeking their attention in the first place? Why are you seeking to participate in their systems when you have said that they are systematically racist, colorist, texturist, and featurist? Then why would you fight to participate in their systems? Why do you care what they think if you're not defined by them? Another thing I noticed is if you go to colorism channels, they will actually say out loud, we don't have any allies. Okay, so they believe that as unambiguous Black women, they don't have any allies. So that would include you as a mixed race woman. That would include you as someone who's benefiting from texturism, someone who's benefiting from featureism or colorism. So whenever they go to their own spaces and they think we're not listening, they're admitting that they don't view us as their allies, and they actually don't view anyone as their allies. And so my question now is, if they didn't view anyone as their allies, why did they join in on the LGBT movement, to be a social justice warrior for them? Why did they join in on the white feminist movement then? Why did they join in and try to get with the Hispanic community and fight for them? And then, a couple years later, they're admitting, oh, actually, we don't have any alliances. We don't have any allies. We're just isolated, unambiguous Black women who are not aligned with anyone else. We have to put ourselves first. Okay, so where was that energy before? So that shows me that a lot of the social justice warrioring was actually disingenuous. And like I said, it was only used as a way to attain social status. It was never about social justice. And then they'll be like, all of these political parties are using Black women's image so that Black women can take all the hits. What do they mean when they say taking the hits? Because I know they don't mean physically. What they mean is they're taking social hits to their image. It's harming their image. They're not being associated with femininity. They're not being associated with softness in their own minds. This is according to their own talking points. So they've sacrificed their collective image for something that did not help them in the end. And now a lot of them are working to change it. They're fighting to change it, which is why a lot of them will view us as their competitors, because our collective image was never really associated with being a social justice warrior. And another talking point I'm hearing is that Black women resting is its own form of protest. Why does everything have to be a protest? You resting should not be a protest. You being feminine, that doesn't have to be something where it's like you're protesting against someone. Like, why does anger have to be brought in? Because when I think of protest, let's look up the definition of that word. It says protest is declaring something firmly and emphatically in the face of implied doubt or in response to an accusation, to express an objection to what someone has done. It's expressing disapproval or objection to something. So it's like, why do I have to have this reactive femininity, this reactive softness? Oh, we as Black women, we're going to rest because this is us reacting and rebelling against white people. Okay, but do you see how that's still an external locus of control, though? Because your entire state of softness, you're only being soft because you're admitting that you just want to spite whoever you had the cape on for before. So once again, that's still external because the femininity and the softness is being triggered by feeling like a mule. Why can't you just be feminine and soft because that's who you are? Why can't you just live the soft life because you're in charge of your own life? You're in charge of your own image. You don't even have to pressure other unambiguous Black women to represent the collective image of everybody. So once again, do you see how it's actually still an external locus of control? Oh, we're going to be soft and we're not going to protest so we can prove a point. We're going to be feminine so we can prove a point to everyone else. That's still an external locus of control, because when they don't get the attention that they wanted from everyone else, then they're going to still feel unsatisfied. So do you see how there's this deep-seated need for approval? And that comes from being rejected over and over, socially, maybe politically, maybe in terms of beauty standards, whatever. So it's almost like I'm rejecting you because you rejected me. I'm going to be feminine and soft and not go to the protest as a way to prove my point. I don't feel the need to do that. I don't have to prove my femininity to others. I don't have to prove my softness to others. Who I am on the inside and the way I live my life, that's my business. It's nobody else's business. I'm not living my life on a stage. My life is not a performance. So do you see how that is still actually a version of performative femininity? It's performative softness. Oh, I'm going to live the soft life and try to prove to all these people that my life is better than theirs. Have you ever noticed that rhetoric when you come across unambiguous women with inferiority complexes? A lot of women who think like that, they love to prove to you how soft their life is. They'll randomly bring up, oh, I have a nicer car than you. Oh, you may be pretty, but my car looks better than yours. You may have this privilege, but I just went on vacation. My life's better than yours. Kind of this flex culture, wanting to have a quote unquote soft, luxurious life, but you're doing it in a flashy way because ultimately it's still you trying to prove yourself to others. You're trying to prove your worthiness to these quote unquote people in power, these white people or whoever you view as having more social status than you. You're trying to prove your worthiness to them. We saw this with a lot of women in the divestment community. They would bring their white husbands online who look like Santa Claus, bragging about, oh, I'm being loved well. Oh, I'm going out golfing. I'm going out and doing Pilates, as if that's something groundbreaking, like, oh, nobody has access to golfing. Nobody has access to doing Pilates. So do you see how a lot of it is still actually very performative? It's still about wanting to be seen. They want to be seen by other people. They want other people to be impressed by their lifestyle. Like, oh, wow, look at her. She used to be a social justice warrior. Now she burned the cape and she's sitting out by the pool. She's doing homemaking. And notice how whenever they bring up the standard of homemaking, like I said, it's usually some sort of mixed race woman. It'll be somebody like Nara Smith. It'll be somebody like Meghan Markle. And I think that on a subconscious level, a lot of them are very interested in homemaking because a lot of them have come from broken homes historically. We know this just based on their own talking points. I'm just repeating what they've said. A lot of them have talked about coming from broken homes. So their mothers or fathers or whatever didn't provide homes for them to be able to do any homemaking, which is why a lot of them aspire to be like Meghan Markle, who is very wealthy, she's pretty, she's privileged. She has access to this guy that, a lot of them would have put on a pedestal because we know that a lot of them worship white men. They encourage other black women to date white men. So if a guy's black, he's automatically a dusty, especially if he prefers light-skinned women or something like that. But then if a guy is white and prefers light-skinned women, he is not a dusty. If he's a white man who prefers a biracial woman, then he's not a dusty. He's just a regular white guy. In fact, he will be their crush. I've noticed that a lot of times whoever an MLS woman dates, that man ends up having more status amongst unambiguous women who want to compete with her. And we see this a lot because when it comes to Nara Smith, a lot of black women have had crushes on her husband, the model. I think his name's Lucky or something like that. And then same thing with Meghan Markle's husband. A lot of unambiguous women, you'll see them crushing on that guy. So I feel like whenever they have this tendency to mimic the lifestyles of MLS women, I think a part of it, it's almost like a soft form of destiny swapping in some cases, where they're watching you, they're examining you. Have you ever had somebody try to copy your decorations as an exotical? I know that thousands of you guys on this channel have actually talked about this. You've had women with inferiority complexes trying to copy your makeup, copying your hair, copying your car that you drive, copying your job or your career that you're going towards. They'll try to copy the type of man that you want. They try to copy your decorations. Your bedroom is pink. Now suddenly they want their bedroom to be pink. You take on a new hobby. You're into homemaking. Suddenly they're into homemaking. You do yoga. You do Pilates. Suddenly they want to do yoga and Pilates. So we've seen this dynamic a lot when it comes to women who come from these homes where maybe they didn't have a good representation of a woman living the quote unquote soft life. Maybe their mothers, in a lot of cases, their own mothers did not live a soft life. And in a lot of cases, they themselves lived a hard knock life. And they've talked about it. They've talked about the brutal bullying they've experienced. They've talked about the brutal experiences they've had when it comes to men, like their own men, their own black men or their own black fathers. So it actually proves my point that a lot of them place exoticals on a pedestal. They view exoticals as not just the standard of beauty, but also as the standard of living. Because a lot of women who are multiracial tend to also be multicultural if they were raised with, both parents or both sides of the family. And by the way, people associate multiculturalism with being more affluent because it shows that, you have access to be in many different spaces. Another talking point I heard was that unambiguous black women were saying that the Meghan Markle TV show gave them the permission to rest in their femininity. So this goes along with my talking point once again. They ignore their own women. They ignore women of their own phenotype, unambiguous black women with 4C hair. They ignore those homemakers. They ignore those women who are all over YouTube and TikTok in favor of someone like Meghan Markle, someone like Nara Smith. Why? It's because in their eyes, exoticals are not just their standard of beauty historically, but also the standard of living. They want to know what kind of lifestyles we are living. This is also why a lot of you guys on this channel have experienced that phenomenon where you've got women who are randomly asking you all these invasive questions. They want to know how much money you make. I told you guys my story about the Uber driver recently. She was asking how much money I made. She was asking if a man has ever paid for my bills. She was asking about my rent. She was asking all kinds of questions about my lifestyle. So have you ever had that dynamic happen to you? Where a woman with an inferiority complex asks you a bunch of invasive questions because she wants to know your life. She wants to know what type of lifestyle you're living so she can do her best to mimic that because that makes her feel like she's on the pedestal. A lot of them feel like, okay, if I can live my life like an MLS woman, then this is proof that I'm on the pedestal. If I can live the same type of life. In fact, that's the argument that they'll give against quote unquote colorists. They'll say things like, oh, well, I still got a man, or I still have wealth, or I still have as many followers as you. I'm still famous just like you. Okay, so you're exposing the fact that you view MLS women as your standard of living. They are your blueprint, actually, for your life. They are the bar that you're trying to meet. And I've also seen a pattern of unambiguous women now trying to backtrack their femininity talking points ever since the rise of the exotical space, because this is more of a decentering men channel. And I've pointed out, and a lot of the other exoticals as well, have pointed out how a lot of their femininity stuff was just based on the white male gaze. It was based on what a man thinks of you or what kind of man you can attract. Or their femininity content was based on movie characters and how those movie characters interacted with men in those movies. By the way, be sure to get my dark femininity course, which is more of a dark psychology course. So the difference between the exoticals talking points about femininity versus the other women's talking points is I've noticed other women, their femininity talking points are more male-centered, whereas ours tend to be more psychology-centered. It's a lot more analytical. We talk a lot more about sociology over in this sector. Sociology is the study of society. It's the study of how society works. It's the study of how people perceive one another, how people react to one another. And I've actually talked about this before too, how another one of their standards of the soft life is actually Shira 7, who is another MLS woman. She's another woman who would be considered quote unquote privileged due to her phenotype and her multiracial background. So once again, that's proof that exoticals are not just a standard of beauty, but also a standard of living. We are a standard of the quote unquote soft life. And this is also why I encourage you guys to start your own YouTube channels, because a lot of women, they're very curious about what it's like to be you. Because deep down inside, they have an admiration for you. So it's like, you should start a YouTube channel. You should be the one on TikTok creating the videos or on YouTube creating the videos. You should be the one talking about that because people will listen. A lot of them ignore their own counterparts so they can listen to somebody like you. So this is why I say to just get on social media, collect your exotical tax. You don't even have to show your face if you don't want to. But anytime an MLS woman comes out with new content, a lot of them will eat that shit up. They'll hop on the bandwagon so quickly, they ate that shit up. The Meghan Markle TV show, And another thing I've noticed too is that people will say that the Black women in luxury movement, the femininity movement, it keeps getting repackaged into different things. Yeah, that's because they're following what MLS women are doing. They're simply hopping on the bandwagon late after MLS women are already doing that thing. So we are the ones who popularize it. We are the ones who, like I said, we are the standard, we set the bar. So that's why it seems like a lot of the Black femininity movements keep on cycling and keep on getting tweaked. Yeah, it's because usually there will be some popular MLS woman who will be placed on a high pedestal on social media. And basically, whatever she says goes. Whatever Meghan Markle does, you're going to see hundreds of thousands of unambiguous women following suit. Because we are considered the standard in a lot of cases. And also, I heard YouTuber Chrissy on a recent video called Black Women's Rest Era. At the timestamp 8 minutes and 27 seconds, she was talking about how Meghan Markle's show is dripping in Eurocentricity. So I find it interesting that you're associating the soft life with being Eurocentric. And also, even if it was Eurocentric, even if Meghan Markle's TV show is Eurocentric, Meghan Markle is European. That's literally a part of her racial background. Women with these multiracial backgrounds, we don't have the same fear of Eurocentrism that an unambiguous woman would have, because we literally have family members who are European or they're from, some other racial background. So we don't have this aversion to being perceived as Eurocentric like how a lot of other people do. And this is how I know that a lot of them weren't serious about their social justice warrior behavior, because deep down inside, a lot of them have no problem with being Eurocentric. They have no problem living a lifestyle that they call quote unquote Eurocentric. They have no problem watching this quote unquote Eurocentric TV show with this Eurocentric biracial who's married to a Eurocentric man. So do you see how they ultimately end up contradicting their own talking points? And they continuously put us on the pedestal as the standard of living? They don't actually have a problem with anything Eurocentric because they beg to be correctively promoted by Eurocentric Hollywood. They beg and they get upset and angry when they are not included or receiving awards from Eurocentric award shows like the Grammys and the Oscars, Golden Globes, all that. So it's like, how are you pretending to be Black-centric or Afrocentric while simultaneously fighting to get into Eurocentric spaces? I also saw that one of the talking points about Meghan Markle's show is that, it's a form of escapism, escaping from these crazy political times. Isn't that an interesting phrase to use? Escapism. So we as the Exoticals, our lifestyles are viewed as a form of escape. So this explains why you've got a lot of women with inferiority complexes living vicariously through women like Meghan Markle. They're very curious about our lifestyles. They're curious and obsessed with our YouTube channels. They're obsessed with who's the face behind this YouTube channel. They're obsessed with who's the face behind all the exotical spaces. So that makes sense. It's a form of escapism. A lot of them like to fantasize about what it would be like to finally be on the pedestal, to finally live that soft life, to finally feel safe and comfortable in your own femininity. This is why in one of my recent videos, you guys saw where I was talking about Lori Harvey, where somebody actually commented and said that they wish they were related to Lori Harvey so that they could hear all the stories of her dating life. Okay, that's actually a form of escapism. You want to escape into her personal life. You want to just get a peek. You just want to take a peek. You're kind of like an outsider looking in. And this is how I know that us Exoticals, we are extremely magnetic. Clearly, we are on the pedestal because you got people begging and pleading and clawing to get into our spaces. They're desperate to see what it would be like to live the same lifestyle as one of the beloved Exoticals. Another talking point I see about the Meghan Markle show is that anybody white who criticizes that TV show is criticizing it due to Meghan's blackness. So it's interesting how now Meghan Markle is being thrown back into blackness, even though she's biracial. People love saying, oh, biracials aren't black. Biracials don't count as black people. You're erasing black women. But then as soon as somebody criticizes a biracial woman, you got black women saying, oh, they're just doing that because she's black. But I thought she was just mixed race. I thought that she was not black. I thought that she's not your representation. So wouldn't that not be your fight? So do you see how that inherent social justice mindset still comes out? Why would they feel the need to defend Meghan Markle and say people are being racist against her? Especially when the collective image of MLS women is that we are supposedly colorist and have superiority complexes. Why would you argue in favor of someone who you feel has a superiority complex over you? Well, part of it is because, like I said, we are like the Barbie dolls or the mascots or the faces of the unambiguous Black community. A lot of them push us to the forefront, so they view us as their representation, even though they try to lie to us and say that we're not. They'll try to lie to us and say that we're not the standard of anything. We're not a standard of beauty. We're not a standard of living. Nobody cares. Nobody's jealous. Nobody likes us. We're not on a pedestal. But then they constantly disprove that. So when Meghan Markle is living the soft life, she's Eurocentric. But when Meghan Markle is being picked on and bullied, now she's Black. So do you see how they associate Blackness with suffering? They associate Blackness with being cyberbullied. They associate Blackness with trauma. So because Meghan Markle's baby got called the N-word, oh, now she's Black. But when she's living the soft life and attracting this rich white man, oh, well, she's not really Black anyway. And also, a lot of women look up to Meghan Markle. A lot of unambiguous women look up to her because Meghan Markle represents a lifestyle that a lot of them will never have access to, according to their own talking points. If you don't believe me, please go watch Chrissy's recent video where she discusses this. She said at the 9-minute and 45-second timestamp that Meghan's lifestyle is unrelatable to a lot of them. So once again, a person like Meghan Markle, she would be the standard that they are aspiring to have. So in a lot of cases, exoticals are aspirational. Our lifestyles are aspirational. You don't have to be on Meghan Markle's level to be considered aspirational. We know this ourselves from experience because a lot of women in real life ask us questions about our personal lives so they can compare themselves to us. Who do people compare themselves to? They usually compare themselves to whatever they view as the standard. And this is why I say you as the exotical, you are oftentimes, you're the standard of beauty, you're the standard of dating, and you're also the standard of living. And this is why you have so many experiences with women who have inferiority complexes watching you, kind of spying on you, trying to get intel on you. They're super interested in your personal life, but they're not interested in fellow unambiguous women's personal lives. Like I said, a lot of people who have inferiority complexes want to date us or create us, and in some cases, they want to be us, meaning they want to live the same lifestyle that they think we are living. But another talking point I'm seeing is that when white women make negative comments about Black femininity, that is them interfering into Black spaces. That shouldn't be interfering, though. You should not allow white people to have so much power over you to the point where a negative YouTube comment or a negative comment about a Netflix show that interferes with your femininity. So no, the fact that unambiguous women are saying that, do you see that once again, that shows that external locus of control. All it takes is one racist white person saying a comment and now you're mad and you feel like they interfered with you. Nobody can interfere with my femininity. Nobody can interfere with my actual life. You can't come in and emotionally disrupt me. You can't come in and disrupt my life and start running shit over here. No, I don't give others the power to even interfere with what I'm doing. Also, I just heard today that apparently on April 5th, that was supposed to be a hands-off day of protest. So I guess women were living the soft life as a form of protesting. So once again, that's still a form of performative femininity. It's a performative soft life. You're only doing it so you can spite whoever thinks you can't have the soft life. Why can't it just be about you? Why can't it just be about pampering yourself because you deserve it? Why is it like you have to prove your lifestyle to others? Do you see that within the unambiguous culture? I've definitely seen that within Black culture where it's like your entire lifestyle is so you can prove that you're rich. You can prove to others that you're flashy. You know, all this flashiness that people have. It's like you're trying to prove something to those who doubted you. And over here in the exotical space, we don't have to set one date, April 5th, as the day that you're living the soft life and having hands off. Do you live that much of a hard knock life to the point where you have to schedule a day, one day a year is when you finally get to sit down and rest? Is your life that hard? Because I thought that the whole point of PTO and weekends and taking a sick day, taking a mental health day, I thought that everybody was already doing that. Why is it that women in the unambiguous community are just now catching up to that, and they have to literally schedule it as a form of protest? That's the only way you can trigger other women in the Black community to finally rest and relax, is by making it into a protest. Imagine having to protest as your form of relaxation. Oh, I'm going to the spa today as a form of protest. I'm getting my nails done as a form of protest. I'm just going to relax and lay by the pool as a form of protest. Do you hear how mentally ill and inauthentic that sounds? Like, why can't I just sit by the pool because that's just my lifestyle? I am authentically soft as I am. I don't need to schedule a whole day for it. I don't have to schedule a protest in order to finally sit down. And I hear some people saying, oh, don't let people guilt you into talking about politics at work. Like, it's so interesting, the obsession with politics. And don't get me wrong, I understand politics are important, but I am not a politically centered person. So I don't center my entire identity around politics. I have decentered politics, just like how I decenter men. So it doesn't mean that that thing can't be a part of your life, but it does mean that you're not waking up in the morning thinking about this. So that's also very interesting, just to see how politically centered a lot of women are who have kind of this social justice mindset. It's like, imagine defining your whole identity based on your political party, based on your political stance. Have you ever been around those women who politicize everything? Oh, well, that's desirability politics. You mean pretty privilege? Like, why are you politicizing everything? So that's another thing I found interesting, was the fact that a lot of them truly do center their identities around things that don't seem to help them. It could be, being male-centered, being politically centered, thinking the government's going to come in and save them, thinking that a certain politician is going to come in and just raise their social status and just give them the soft life. And, this politician's going to lead them into the promised land. And don't even get me started on how a lot of the people who actually helped them in politics throughout history were MLS people. Don't even get me started on that. And I also saw in Chrissy's video, she was like, if anybody asks you if you're going to the protest, just tell them you have something else to do. I don't even hang out with people that are that politically centered to the point where they have to go stand outside in the hot sun for 4 hours to protest. I don't even hang out with people like that. I have an online business. I have a beauty regimen that I'm following. I have friends. I have so many other things that I'm doing. So it's like, who are these people hanging out with? Are you just hanging out with a whole bunch of social justice warriors or something? Because I had never even heard of femininity as a form of protest. I had never even heard of that until today. I was today years old when I heard that women had to create an entire protest just to get unambiguous Black women to be feminine. And that's actually an insult to unambiguous Black women, because whoever created that protest or whoever's promoting it, you're almost implying that Black women inherently are living this lifestyle of being mules. And so now you got to schedule a day. It's almost like you're implying that they are special ed in terms of their own femininity and in terms of their own soft life. So that protest, it's not hitting like how you think it will. It's not helping the collective image of unambiguous women like how you think it will. Also, I looked up the image of the article that Chrissy was referencing in her video, where she said that people are using unambiguous Black women's image. So I actually looked up that author from Times Weekly, Stacey M. Brown. That's a Black man, allegedly. So it sounds like this whole thing where it's like you destroyed your image, you destroyed your collective image. That is an internalized problem in the Black community. It is not mixed race people's fault. It's not light-skinned people's fault. It's not even white people's fault. Because the main people perpetuating this stereotype are people within the Black community themselves, people within the unambiguous community. So another one of their social climbing mistakes is depending on Black men to cure their image. And my question for the unambiguous Black community is, whose job is it to fix the collective image of unambiguous dark-skinned Black women? Whose job is it? Is it dark-skinned Black men's job? Because clearly you think this guy did a bad job because he put a dark-skinned Black woman as the face of his article. Okay, but is it men's job to fix women's image? Because if so, then that's very male-centered. Why are you relying on men of any race to tell you what your collective image has to be. So do you see how, once again, that's actually an external locus of control? Everybody else needs to fix my image. But what do you ladies think? Have you ever had people try to pry into your personal life or ask questions about what you're doing in your personal life? Because if so, you, my pretty friend, are the standard of living. What do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section, and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.